Hello 11th graders. You know what we're doing today. You're going to have some time to work on your world literature papers, but I thought I'd give you a quick little talk about the writing process. It's probably something you've heard about since kindergarten. I know that my own daughter, and I'm serious, has come home in second grade talking about working through the writing process. And for her, what that means is brainstorming ideas, and then taking notes, and then drafting, and then creating a final draft, and then eventually publishing. But I want to tell you a little bit something that in the olden days I might say to you, go home, write a paper, and you write it, and you just produce it as if you're supposed to create something beautiful out of the blue. And then finally I think teachers realize that writing is a much more complicated process. The problem is the writing process that my daughter learns in first grade is also a little bit inaccurate. I think that sometimes real writers sometimes do write final drafts in a night. Sometimes real writers come up with ideas that end up being the crystal or the nugget that they use in the final draft some months down the road. I think that the real writing process is messy and it's recursive. In other words, you're always brainstorming throughout the writing process. Even if you already came up with a great topic, even if you already talked to me, you may find yourself now working on your draft realizing that you have better ideas. Well, by all means, incorporate them. The writing process doesn't always have to be linear. So what I want to encourage you today is to, if you are almost done, you're going to go to that World Lit Tips document and try to just fix what you have. Put it into a final draft form. Make it look good. Read it out loud so that you can hear the sound of it, so you can hear your grammar mistakes perhaps, so that it's polished when you hand it in. But at the same time, I'm encouraging you to be a little bit messy. Look at my desk for a second, or look at some of the papers back here. I'm not actually writing anything right now. As you know, I'm kind of in the last revision stages, but when I write, I have things all over. If I'm talking about La Teoria de Tormes, it's open on my desk to a page that I'm thinking about. And then over here, I have Fathers and Sons sitting here waiting to go. And here I have a stack of papers on which I've taken some notes. And I'm thinking and I'm putting things together. If your topic is the narrative structure in La Teoria, you should have notes of where you've noticed things about the narrative structure. And you've marked it in your text, and then on a separate sheet of paper, you've said, what conclusions am I making about those notes? Well, if I found this evidence, if I've made this interesting observation, what do I have to say about it? Why does it matter? Why is it interesting? Is there something similar that I can find in this book? I think that to a certain extent, writing has to be this kind of spread out, messy process in order to create something that's interesting, create something that indicates a lot of thought, a lot of synthesis, taking things from all these different places and putting it together, and a lot of analysis, looking closely at something and breaking it apart. If you want, you could think about writing as a kind of intricate website, that every idea is connected to another idea. Every note that you scratch is connected to something else. And your job is to sort of somehow pull them all together and ultimately make something, unfortunately perhaps, somewhat linear, your final paper. Might be much more interesting if you could make up a website about these books rather than a paper. But in this case, you have to come up with a well-organized paper that takes us through your main points and makes some interesting conclusions about some literary aspect of two of the world literature books. But that whole process beforehand, I think, needs to be a bit of a mess. There's nothing better when you're writing than to have a notebook by your bedside, because all of a sudden you come up with a genius idea in the middle of the night and you wake up and scribble that idea down. Don't lose those ideas that come to you at random. You've still got a couple more days left for your World Lit paper. And I want to also encourage you to do this. Keep thinking for a couple of days. The longer an idea marinates, the longer an idea has a chance to connect to other ideas that you've already made, I think the better your paper is going to be. Your paper should be evidence of an interesting idea, some support from the text for that interesting idea, and then some discussion of that support. You're showing us what you found in the text that's interesting. You're trying to make suggestions about perhaps what the author is trying to do. You're making suggestions about how this work works, or you're making suggestions about what these works say about the world. And I think in order to do that, you have to really go back to the writing process. And the writing process is a natural, recursive, messy system. You know what? You could think of it as biology class and the way that organisms grow and move and live. Or you could think about complexity theory and chaos theory and math and fractals. This is an intricate, messy, growing, natural process. And you can't always put it in a straight, linear form. So today, be a little bit messy with your thinking, be a little bit messy with your drafting, and if you're at that stage, where you're now putting it all together in something linear, then look at that document, World Lit Tips, in the General Resources folder, and begin to put this into an orderly form. So good luck, it's due on Wednesday, and you have a little bit of time today to work on that.